Hi, I'm Olivia. Welcome back to the Hornthrowers podcast. I am joined by Mycorrhizal. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Mycorrhizal.
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 Okay, that makes sense. I always looked at it and I was like, I'm not sure how to pronounce this. I don't want to butcher it. I should probably have asked before. But yeah, so
It's
we're here
okay.
to... Sorry, what was that?
I said it. That's totally fine.
Oh, okay. Right, so we're here to talk about the T4T, a musical mutual aid effort split, which is raising money for Ajuda Trans to help with the Rio Grande do Sul flooding. I just thought we could start discussing the cause that the split's for.
Sure. So Ajuda Trans, they are raising funds specifically for trans people I guess, with this project, but they are raising funds for trans folks in Brazil, in the Rio do Sul, who have been affected by the horrific floods that are happening there, trying to get them resources, housing, food, just get them back on their feet. And it is specifically targeting the trans community there who already have so many obstacles to face. And now they have these natural disasters that have made it worse off for them.
Yeah, I didn't actually know about the flooding and stuff until I'd seen um seen the split, well, compilation. How did you get involved with it? Like, how did you come to that conclusion of needing to raise money for that specific cause?
Sure. So when I first started getting this together, I just had a vague idea that I wanted to do a compilation by trans people for trans people. And after I compiled nearly all the bands, we started discussing what different charities were out there. And a band called Darkat Yuyamin or Yuyamin, I asked them beforehand how to spell it or how to say it, and that's my pronunciation. Portuguese is I know none. So, but Darkat Yuyamin kind of suggested Ajuda Trans RS, and we looked into them, and everyone agreed that this was a great cause. I think many of us, especially in the Western and the in the States, especially, I had no clue this was going on, unfortunately. So once I dug into it and we all dug into it, we just voted and we decided this was probably the best place to raise money. So
Yeah, so did you already then had all the bands and all the artists ready before you found the cause then, yeah?
yeah, so I've been working on gathering these bands, and we've other bands reached out to other bands all around the world. Probably for a couple months now. Um, Before we didn't announce it. We previewed it a little bit and promoted a little bit, but it kind of was, we wanted to launch it on Pride Month, when maybe there's more eyes on the trans community. But yeah, I had started reaching out to bands long before this came out, and I wanted it to be big. I wanted it to be big. I wanted it to include any genre as long as the artist was trans, and I wanted it all to be people who really felt plugged into social activism and helping.
Yeah, that's what I found really interesting though, the fact that it's such a big scope of like genre. I went in, I more knew the metal bands involved because that's my bread and butter
Mhm.
basically. But yeah, there was stuff in there that I was like, oh, I didn't know this worked. I kind of think, how did you approach like putting the track listing together so that they all complement each other? Was that like a conscious effort, or was it like just first come, first serve, or how did you arrange the track listing?
We wanted to do something egalitarian. I didn't It would be easy for me to pick all my favorite bands and the bands that I'm friends with and put them at the top of the list, or even put myself at the top of the list. I wanted to avoid that. And
Yeah, I
so
noticed that your track was like near the end, which I thought was quite cool. Just because
yeah,
people
and
would usually put theirs at the front.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't intentional, but we did a lottery. I took all the bands, I assigned them a number, and I literally did the picking paper numbers out of a hat. And that's how we came up with the track listing. So, I mean, you've got like an ambient track starting the whole thing off, and then you've got a really harsh noise track, and then you'll have
Yeah.
pop and indie rock and metal and kind of everything in there.
No, I found it interesting just because it was like you get eased in with that nice track and there's just the 8 minutes of harsh noise and you're like, wow. And then there's just like I feel like everything weirdly flows together, but I don't know why,
Yeah,
if it wasn't intentional.
I've actually listened to it quite a few times myself because I found myself really enjoying it. And I'm a person who I like music. I like music that grips me, whether that's hip hop or punk or anything really, metal. I have a pretty vast taste in music, and so yeah, I really enjoy the comp. I think other people are, and the variety to me is really what makes this a great project.
I guess we could talk about like the importance of like trans people like raising money for other trans people, 'cause I feel like that's quite a important topic, especially in the current political climate, especially in like the US and the UK.
Yeah, for sure. So I think I'm not as familiar within the UK, but I think here in the US, trans people have kind of always taken care of each other, whether it was folks like Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera doing like street transvestite action, uh, later changed to transgender, but that was like appropriate terms at the time. Um, they were doing the work, even in mainstream cis gay culture, there was still a lot of exclusion of trans people. And you can look up like Sylvia Rivera giving this excellent speech in front of like a group of queer people, and she's getting booed. And um, we've never had much help as trans people aside from each other. I remember this was 10 years ago when I started transitioning, but I remember the majority of the help that I got, whether it was access to clothes, access to advice, access to housing, support groups, all these things were coming from other trans people. So this term T4T, kind of a lot of people associate that with like trans people dating trans people, but I really felt that it had much more meaning than that, because without other trans people, I don't think I would be here. And I think that that story is true of a lot of us.
Yeah, I think like it's really like it brings up like the like community and stuff, doesn't it? The whole T for T thing. Like I know
Mm-hmm.
in the UK it's quite like safeguarded like everything. Like I know waiting lists are massive and a big problem, but like there's just other things where like the moment there's a general election and the conservative leaders basically platforming like a bathroom ban and stuff like that. So it's getting a bit grim over here as well. But yeah, I do notice though that like there is a strong sense of community between trans people. Like mainly like the most of the trans people I know though are through like Instagram and the internet and stuff like that these days. Like even like people that I know personally, there is like a strong sense of community, which is really nice.
I agree. I agree. And like most of my trans friends at this point are online as well. Because I live in a small town. I didn't always. I transitioned in a larger town and then moved home. And there are trans folks here, but uh, I'm pretty introverted, to
Yeah,
be honest.
same.
So it's hard to meet people. And so most of my friends are people like Eleanor, uh, people like Dan from Damnheit, and these other folks in the trans metal community who I've met and talked to.
Yeah, but it's pretty interesting because like I've so I am pretty interested in this split because like I'm doing my arts research masters at the moment and I'm like looking at the metal studies thing because it's mostly just like for like cis men. So I'm looking at like women and like LGBT people, specifically trans people, because like I'm trans woman, so it makes sense. And like how like inclusive spaces in metal can like lead to like practical real world benefits. So like this, when I
Mm-hmm.
saw this, I was like, I need to interview you because this is like perfect for my research, not just my
Right.
research, but like spreading awareness. And like, I do think, especially like the ROBM community is like really good at like raising money for causes and especially helping queer people when they need help. Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
we could talk about as well, like, um, the fact that with the Grande del Sol floods and stuff like that, it kind of highlights the like impact of climate change as well. Because I'm assuming, given where it is situated, um, that it's would be to do with like the rising tides and stuff like that. I don't know.
I mean, I just checked like hashtags today, the hashtag Ajuda Trans #RS. And I was checking it today, and the flooding is still happening. It's still happening. So these funds are just really important. And something I want people to consider, is that like, I don't know about in Britain, in the UK, what your exchange rate is like, but here, like we've raised about $300 so far with this in US dollars, and that's almost $1,600 in Brazil. So our money is going to go a long way towards helping individuals. And that just means a lot to me. It means a lot to me. And I think it means a lot to all the artists involved.
Yeah, I was finding that like that's kind of strange how much it actually equates to in like Brazilian currency. But when I bought my copy and I was like, I put in the amount I bought it for, and then I was like, but that's not that many dollars. So I was trying to figure out like how to up it in dollars, but having to go up
Mm-hmm.
in pounds because it's like, I think the pound is like £1, $1.50 maybe. I'm not 100% sure.
I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
don't know myself,
The
but
British economy gets wrecked all the time anyway, so I never know
yeah.
what it's like. What are like some of your highlights of the split without like well through the compilation without like sounding like you're favoriting people, but like what are some of your highlights?
Um, I I really like a lot of like the more pop stuff, the more the stuff that I wouldn't necessarily normally plug into as much. Danny Cotter has a great song on there. I like the first track a lot. That the ambient track is great. Televiewer did a really good track. I love Lust Tag. I love her side project, Gun Girl. Bury Them and Keep Quiet. And I really want to highlight Dark Hat Uyuman just because they are very important for this project coming together. And without that, we wouldn't be donating to Brazil. We wouldn't be helping trans people in Brazil. They brought the whole thing. They really were important in this. So I really want to highlight them.
Yeah, I think my some of my highlights as well were like the I really liked the occasion track because I remember I was listening to it
Yeah.
like I just finished work and I was listening to it and I can't remember which tracks before it. Where is it?
So the
Uh
occasion is actually a side project of Vanessa Funky. Check
yeah,
her out too. She's
yeah, I was surprised by that because I hadn't actually listened to it before. Oh, I've just started playing it. I completely accidentally started playing something off it. But yeah, so yeah, that was one of my favorites on there as well. But I don't know, I think
it's a great
it
track.
was it was kind of nice seeing stuff I recognized as well. Like um the Lost Tag stuff, Bury Them and Keep Quiet. Um
Mhm.
yeah, it was really it was a proper experience. Do you have like plans to make like a second compilation? And have you got any ideas of where you'd raise money for? Or are you still
Yeah.
focusing on this at the moment?
So what I'm thinking about, and I've come to the conclusion, is making this like an annual thing. Now, whether that's a couple times a year or once a year during Pride Month, I don't know yet. This is just something that was so successful and is continuing to be successful. People are continuing to buy it. And I think that bringing bands together for social causes, helping other trans people, like I've said before, it's important. So we definitely want to continue doing this. on an annual basis.
So how did you like put the artwork and stuff together? Because I quite like it. It's very reminiscent of like maybe it's a bit weird, but Mario Kart Rainbow Road, but like the trans flag edition.
So we discussed a lot of ideas, and early on, Dylan from Human Daughter had volunteered to do the art, and we were just discussing things, and someone brought up Rainbow Road
Oh, so
from
I was
Mario.
right. I was right.
Yeah, it is based on Mario Kart. It is based on Rainbow Road. We just thought this idea of travel and of people from all over the world kind of in this metaphorical traveling to help each other. Um, and also like everyone knows Mario, everyone knows Mario Kart, everybody knows Rainbow Road. So it also just, I think, the cover art that they did, that Dylan did, is just it's it catches people's attention, and they're like, oh, what is this? So
No, it's really cool. Now I just keep thinking about Mario Kart now because me and my partner have been replaying it recently on the Switch, and I
yeah,
can't like, I can never win. But the only time I won was on like the Nintendo Wii, Rainbow Road course. I was like,
yes.
yes, even though I lost every single other race, that was my highlight for me. Yeah.
See, I'm a Nintendo 64 Mario Kart girl because I'm a little older, I think, than the average person making this style of music. So uh, we yeah, that was my system, and I was awesome at it. And then recently, my daughter, and she's also trans, she brought her Switch down, and we played it on the Switch, and I just got my ass handed to me by her. It was humbling. It was very humbling.
Yeah, my partner really wanted to, well, always plays as like Baby Peach. And then now I'm like, I hate Baby Peach. Every time I see Baby Peach, I'm like, no. Because I'd be like, it's out of four, isn't it? I'd be like, I'd win two of them. And then I'd just finish fourth in the last one and I'd lose overall. And my partner's like, Baby Peach always wins. And I'm like, no, I don't want Baby Peach to always win. But yeah. So then who's your favorite racer is in Mario Kart?
I've always played Yoshi. I've always played Yoshi. Green Yoshi.
My favorite's Boo, because I'm a big goth. So going on Boo in the most silliest motorbike. But yeah. So what's new with like the my I'll try and pronounce it properly. Mycorrhizal? You literally told me
Mycorrhizal. Um,
Mycorrhizal.
yep. So I've got a split coming out here soon. Pre-orders are up on that right now on my Bandcamp. Actually, no, on Liminal Dread Productions Bandcamp. It's not on my page yet. And that's with Stygian. Again, I know these people online and don't know how to say their band names.
I think it might be
Pretty.
Stygian. I know that the new Crypt
I think
Sermon
it's
record, the new Crypt Sermon
and
record's called Stygian Rose, I think. And I think I've heard someone say it's Stygian. So I think
I'm pretty sure that that's the correct pronunciation. Um, there's somebody that I've been talking to for a while, and I was really impressed with their just like bone crushing, very visceral, like sludgy doom that they were putting out. It reminded me of just raw, like really raw, loud bands that you could really feel their pain. And when I was ready, I reached out to them and I said, do you want to do a split? And they were like, oh God, absolutely. So like I approached my label, Liminal Dread Productions, and they were like, yeah, let's do it. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited for that for people to get a hold of it, not just for like my tracks, which, you know, I want people to listen to, but really I'm excited for Stygian to get some music out there.
yeah. When's it releasing this? Split. I'd seen about it, but it hadn't stuck
Uh,
into my brain when it's coming out.
I honestly can't remember offhand. I think it's later this month.
The
Well,
28th. It's in the black
20,
metal font.
yes. So yeah, the 28th it'll be released officially, but you can get pre-orders now. both digitally and on cassette. Cassettes are limited. So if that's your thing, check it out, I guess.
I shall definitely be checking it out. I really like Liminal Dread as well because they do the zine, don't they, every so often. So
Yeah.
I've got a copy of that, which is pretty cool. I really like my zines. But how did you get like it? Oh, sorry, I think there's a bit of a lag. How did you get involved with Liminal Dread?
So it's kind of a funny story, maybe not funny. It's funny to me because I've been doing music like my whole life, and I don't think I ever had the boldness that I did. I just reached out to them. They have an email on their website that was like, if you're interested, email us. So I reached out, and they were like, oh yeah, we love Mycorrhizal. We would love to release your stuff. Um, so I signed a little contract with them, and uh, we've just been releasing stuff. We released first a compilation of all of my EPs, and then we released Blessed Be the Match, which is my personal favorite thing I've released, and now we're releasing this. And in the future, definitely with them, want to do a full length or two. So,
Have you got
but
those written or?
I just reached out and they were game. So
That's pretty cool. Have you got the full length written, or is it something you're still planning and working on?
it's something that I have. Usually my music making process is sort of it starts out with just me coming up with different ideas, different themes, and really trying to parse it out in my brain, like what I want it to thematically sound like, and then start working on it after that. It'll probably be sometime in the fall that I really sit down to work on that. Summer is pretty busy for me. I'm an outdoorsy person, and I grow food, and I have dogs, and I'm just constantly outside. So it's not the most productive time for me musically, but I'm aiming for a full length this fall. Um, but I'm at this point, I'm just sort of thinking through themes.
Yeah, I like asking people like what their different approaches are to writing because I feel like nobody really has the same process. I kind of like the idea of like thematically planning something out and then figuring out what will fit. I think that's quite cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think
Um,
this works for me. I mean, I don't think I'm a traditional musician in a lot of ways. I've been a vocalist for over 20 years in various bands, and this is the first time, living out here and not having access to other musicians really, especially other trans musicians. And I really was like, I don't really want to work with anyone else. I want to do this myself, but I don't play traditional guitar. I don't do any of these things. I just know how to digitally recreate this stuff. And so for me, it's always like themes and ideas and concepts have always been more important. I can't lay down the music unless I know not necessarily what the songs sound like, but what the concept, what mood I want to create with it, and go from there.
yeah, I suppose that's probably important for like especially electronic sort of music anyway, because you have such a big scope of instruments to draw from. That if you, I imagine, well, I've never tried, but I'd imagine if you went into it just blind, it'd be kind of hard to navigate. If that makes
Absolutely.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it is. It is. And like this project, when I started it with Mycorrhizal, I was like, okay, I want to do black metal, but I want to do it loosely as if it's a coloring book. And I know how to color inside the lines, but I'm going to draw from everything that I listen to. I've always done that with music. And I think Mycorrhizal really showcases that I'm not strictly black metal. In fact, sometimes I'm not very black metal at all, and other times I'm more. Um, but I think that's just my influences and all these things coming together. Uh,
I think
I don't
that's,
like to be confined.
yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I'd never really heard like black metal done like that until was it No Dawn for Men, the Feminazgul album. And I was like,
Mhm.
this sounds really cool. And most of that was just synth like guitars, wasn't
Right.
it? And I remember reading like people's like traditional black metal fans like anger at the fact that it wasn't real guitars. I was like, this is just making me like it more because it's like to me, black metal's there's like an element of punk to it. And like there's nothing more DIY than like being like, I can't play guitar, but I can program things. So I'm gonna play guitar through a keyboard and it'll sound exactly the same. It'll get what I want, and it's just
Right.
cool.
Right. And I might get some shit for this, but one thing I'm always telling people is like I don't when these original black metal bands came together, their music was a response to music that was already out there, that they wanted to do something different and harsher. And so I honestly don't think that a lot of those bands, if they were around today, would be doing black metal as we know it. I think that thinking outside of the box and not following the rules of music is probably the most black metal thing a person can do. Not knocking bands that, are traditional black metal. I listen to a lot of them, but me personally making music, I can't do that. I can't stick to a script. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I've never thought about it like that, but that is true that black metal was like a response to the times, and if they were doing it now, it would be quite different. That's quite something I've never thought of before.
Right. And that, like I said, I might get shit for that because I don't know that for sure, but I think that black metal is a response, and I think that that response should push the limits and not follow the rules.
Yeah, I agree. I think like that's the thing with art as well, where a lot of good art does like it is a response to something and it does push boundaries, and it's like the only way to like like add to the pantheon of metal, if that makes sense, is to try new things. And I know metal fans don't necessarily like that, but sometimes you can still keep the core of something whilst changing it.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't really concern myself too much with the people that don't like my music. If they don't, that's fine. We all have stuff we like and don't like. I'm making stuff I like, and if other people are into it, uh, I'm all about it. But I'd be making it regardless. So
Yeah. That's the best way. I always think like if you don't like what you're making, there's no point making it, and it doesn't matter what other people think, as long as you're happy yourself with what you've made, really.
for sure.
Yeah. So I asked you as well, which we usually do on the show, to pick 5 songs that have inspired you. So this would be like quite a good segue, I imagine. Would you like to go through some of your picks?
Sure. Do you want me to give you like the list
We can just
or
go through them one by one and talk about them. I know that
so the way I chose songs um were more I was picking songs from throughout my life that the first time I heard this song, I fell in love with the band. These are all songs that gripped me and made me go, holy shit, this is different. This is something that I hadn't heard before. So my first song is actually Burnout by Green Day, off of Dookie. That song, now sure, it's just a punk song, but at the time I was in middle school, I think, when this came out, and I basically listened to the radio up until that point, and I got to go buy my first album, and the cover made me laugh. It was called Dookie. I was a middle schooler. um, so I threw it on, and Burnout is the first song, and I've been a Green Day fan since. Um, Not so much their newer work, but I think that's just because I'm older, and those first few albums are very important to me.
yeah, I really was a big fan of Green Day as a kid because like I was like how old would I have been? maybe 8 when American Idiot came out, and I remember seeing that and being like, this is so cool. And my mum was a big like fan of like pop punk and stuff like that, like NoFX and Green Day and stuff. And I really, really like early Green Day. Like I've got a soft
Yeah.
spot for it. And one of my favorite things to play on guitar is, the jaded
Uh-huh.
riff. That is really,
Yep.
really fun. It's really fun. I liked
Yeah.
what was they did 3 albums, didn't they, after 21 Guns? And there was a few songs on that I liked. But apart from that, I wasn't a big fan of later Green Day either.
Yeah. And like I said, I think it's not that the music is bad or anything. I think
Yeah.
Green Day, they're a band that has generations of fans that are kind of like you said your first album was really like that you liked was American Idiot, and there's definitely like that's a great album. That's probably the last album by them that I really liked. And
Yeah.
I did came out, which I think was really common at the time. Um so I don't even want to knock their newer stuff. I just want to say that I'm unfamiliar with it.
Yeah. I just found it sad in a way. It was kind of recently, maybe the past 5 years or so, and they were making like anti-Trump songs, and I was like, I feel like someone like my age or younger should be making songs like this now. Like, I don't know if this is like a controversial thing to say, but like, I don't think, no, I don't think they should. I think they've critiqued things for so long that they shouldn't be
Mhm.
bearing the responsibility in the mainstream of doing something like that. There should be like younger bands and artists doing it, which there are, but not like, I don't know. Maybe that was a boomer take, a boomer take on
Well,
my part.
we had one of the biggest platforms, um, especially around the time American Idiot. I mean, that album kind of took the world by storm. So,
Yeah, I thought it's I was like dead little, so I was like, this is so cool. But so your second pick, I've not actually heard of this before. Um, Coalesce is the band.
so the song is "While the Jackass Operation Spins Its Wheels" by Coalesce. Um, I can remember the very first time I listened to Coalesce. I was in somebody's apartment, hanging out, smoking weed. I was a teenager, and at the time, I was like a lot of teenagers in the '90s. I was late '90s, mid '90s. I was really, really, really into new metal, and somebody put on the Coalesce CD and was like, "This is gonna blow your mind." And I had never heard anything like it. At the time, it was probably the heaviest thing that I've ever heard. And to this day, Coalesce are one of my favorite metalcore bands. Although I use that term loosely because I think they were way ahead of their time and don't fall into a lot of the tropes.
That's pretty cool. I like doing these as well because there are oftentimes bands where I don't know who they are, and then I go off and listen to them. I'm like, oh, this is really cool, and I find them a like favorite band. So I will check them out once I've
Yeah, let me
finished
know
the podcast. I
about
shall.
that.
Um, I know what this next song is. I think I'd be living under a rock if I didn't know what the next one is. You can go ahead with this one.
So the next song is really important to me because before I discovered even punk, I discovered hip hop, and the two genres to me have always been the same thing from a different cultural lens. Like I always say that like rap is the punk of the black community. Um so my next song is Still Dre by Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. With Mycorrhizal, everything is programmed. I use samples, I use a lot of that. And when Still Dre kicks in, I mean, the piano part is memorable. It sticks in your head. And Dre is one of the best producers of all time. And if I could produce a song half as good as Still Dre, uh, I'd be happy for life. So he's
Yeah,
the greatest producer of all time, in my opinion.
yeah. I think it's one of those things that gets overlooked. Like I know when people are like elitists and they don't like hip hop and stuff, and they're like Kanye West, I think is like a really, really good producer. It's a shame he's like a piece of shit now. But like I remember
Yeah.
listening to, is it My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy when I was in
Hmm.
college loads, and I was like, the production on that is so good. And he has such a good ear for like melody. But I think a lot of like, especially like metal fans, like close themselves off to the types of music, and it's like you can learn so much from just like, this is what I got told in college when I did music, is like, don't just listen to metal, go out and find other things. And I did. And I feel like it's really beneficial because it really, I, I, it's kind of cliche to say, but it does like open your mind to things, like the possibility, different possibilities and stuff. And
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have always listened to a wide array of music. Everything from stuff people would think is pretentious to pop music. There's plenty of pop music that I like. I think like many of us that are into metal tend to go through a pretentious stage, but I hit my late
yeah,
30s. I stopped caring so much about what other people thought and just started enjoying what I enjoyed, not having these, sort of guilty pleasures. I stopped feeling guilty about liking what people would consider crap or whatever,
yeah,
and just really embraced it. I think writing a pop song that is memorable and sticks in your head and that is catchy is probably one of the hardest things to write.
no, I agree.
Because yeah, it's impressive if you can write a 15-minute black metal song in different time signatures with all this stuff. I enjoy that too, but it's not as easy to write a pop song as people think it is.
No, I
Not
agree.
not one that is legendary and lasts a lifetime. So I like everything. I like everything. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't like everything, but I like with music and I find the gems from them.
Yeah.
Um, I can, I know there are people like this, and I'm not judging them at all, but I can't imagine only listening to one style of music. That sounds so boring to me.
No, it does. It's kind of triggered a memory in me of, I went to like a job interview years and years ago. And then, when they have the group ones, they ask you stuff like all those like icebreaker questions. One of them was like, what's your guilty pleasure song at the moment? And it was when the Ariana Grande album with, is it God is a Woman, was on it.
Yeah,
And I
great
was like,
song.
it is. And I was like, I really like that. And they were like, that's not a guilty pleasure. And I'm like, I listen to metal most of the time. And I'm not even saying it's a guilty pleasure. I'm saying if you looked at me, you may think it's a guilty pleasure. But yeah, I
For
I do think like some pop songs are like, you can learn a lot from it. I know we interviewed Hell Ripper, and he was saying he looks at like Dire Straits and stuff like that, and he picks up like riffs from that. And like one of his favorite songs was Sultans of Swing, which I didn't
that's one
like
of
at the
the
time.
songs. I love Dire Straits.
Yeah.
I love Dire Straits, and I do think there's a lot to learn there. I even use a plugin sometimes when I'm making music that's a Dire Straits guitar. So it's interesting that you mentioned them.
Yeah, I'd gone off them at the time though, because like the shop I worked in would play the same songs over and over again, and their songs just get shoved into my head, and I'm like serving loads of people on a till, and I'm like, I hate my job, and the song's making it worse. But yeah, that was I've kind of got over that now because I've quit that job. But at the time, it was like I can't listen to them anymore.
I understand. I've had many jobs like that where even a song you like gets played too many times, and you're like, I'm gonna take a 10-year vacation from that song.
Yeah, there'd be some comfort songs though that would come on, and I'd be like, once in a while, I'd be like, I can have this 3 minutes where I'm okay. But one
Yeah,
of them was what's there's a Roxy Music song where it's about a guy who's got like a blow up doll, and I was like, this shouldn't be being played in a shop at 5 p.m. This isn't appropriate for like there could be kids in the shop. But it was like
sure.
one of those radios as well. It's like pre-programmed, and it'd go from like Saturday night like really high octane dance music to like a really depressing ballad, and you'd be like, I can't deal with this anymore. High Octane though kind of takes us into the next song, which I first heard from um I think probably their most famous song, which was always on like the music channels in the UK, which was New Noise. So I don't know if you want to segue that into your next pick.
So my next song is protest song 68 by Refused. Um, I picked this song because I didn't want to pick New Noise. So I went and I picked my second favorite. Well, I picked a song that I like a little more and that less people have heard, I guess. The first time I heard them was New Noise, and I think it was back when like MTV and MTV2 still played music. And it was on, there was a show called 120 Minutes that played like more alty stuff later at night. And the video for New Noise came on. And again, I'm in my late teens and I'm becoming a young adult. And that song blew my mind the first time I heard it. I saw these, I guess I'll say lads. They looked like lads, what I would call a lad, and they were dressed in their school uniforms. Just this rawness. I really hadn't plugged into much hardcore yet. That song really gripped me. That album, The Shape of Punk to Come, has influenced me in so many ways. It's a S tier album, absolutely. I can listen to it front to back and not get bored. And I just think Protest Song 68 has a strong message, and you can really get into it. And I really recommend Refused for folks who don't know them. A lot of the modern post-hardcore stuff that's coming out wouldn't exist without Refused. S tier band, S tier album, S tier song.
I agree. I can't not mention New Noise though, because I think that is an example of like a timeless song, like that's really, really catchy. Like I remember hearing that
Absolutely.
as a kid and being like, this is amazing. And it was on Tony Hawk's, which me and my partner were replaying the PS2 Tony Hawk's Underground. We were customizing the character and that was playing. We got a few minutes into the game and then it crashed. So we went straight to the remakes of Pro Skater 1 and 2 on the PS4.
Hawk 1 and 2 player. I kind of stopped gaming after the Nintendo 64 because I could never afford to buy any other game system. So those were my two Tony Hawks, were the first two.
Yeah, I remember playing Underground at a friend's house and like I was kind of in a similar situation where like I had the PS2 and then I wanted an Xbox 360, saved up all my Christmas money, was going to go buy one. No, it was my birthday money. Was going to go buy one. And then I went to HMV, which is like a record store, and I bought like loads of CDs. One of them was Rain in Blood and like a few different metal CDs. I was like, I can't afford my Xbox anymore. So it was a few years later till I got like a PS4. And then that's when I got back into it again. But then adult life takes hold and you can't play games as much as you want. So,
Yeah.
and then your final pick as well kind of like ties into that. So me and my friend were playing not Pro Skater, Tony Hawk's Underground. We were listening to this next artist. If you want to carry on.
So this next artist, the song is Xtal, Xtal, and it's by Aphex Twin. I think most people are familiar with like Come to Daddy when they listen to Aphex Twin, which I think is a fantastic song. I don't really think it's reflective of his music as a whole. And so I picked Xtal because I really felt, A, it's a powerful song. It really showcases like the breakcore, ambient breaks, and just really creative music that Aphex Twin that he makes. So I think if you listen to Mycorrhizal and you are familiar with Aphex Twin, then you'll know that I'm very influenced by him. I'm very influenced by electronic music, but even more specifically, this sort of like, I hate the term IDM because it applies that other kinds of electronic music are not intelligent, and I don't believe that, but that's sort of the term that gets thrown around is IDM. bands like Aphex Twin, Talker, Fortet, stuff like that. So I think it's just a great track, and I wanted to include it because I really wanted Aphex Twin to be on this list.
No, yeah, there's always like the interesting ideas of the Aphex Twin. I'm trying to now remember what's the song. Did he drop a pin or something? Or is it like a metal ball he dropped and he turned it into like a beat and it carried through the song?
Yeah, I can't remember the song title offhand, but he's really known for doing that, especially in his early work, taking tape samples and looping tapes over tapes over tapes and stuff like that. So this idea of using different sounds and different techniques to create electronic music, it's just influenced me a lot. It's made me more open to the idea of, maybe just hitting a pan and recording that sound and then looping it or whatever, really. I just think Aphex Twin is the best at what he does.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's gonna bother me now what that song is. So I'm gonna have to go through like Apple Music and just play every single song until I go, this sounds like the song I remember hearing 10 years ago.
Yeah, it'll probably come to me like later today. That's usually I'll be walking my dogs and I'll be like, that's the song title, but
Yeah.
all offhand.
I never know song titles as well. Like I've said before, like I'd fail the poser test because someone would ask me like to name 3 songs, and I'm like, I can say which songs I like and where they appear on an album. I don't remember their names. And then I get called a poser and I'd run away.
Marine names too. So yeah, I get it. I get it.
The whole like hitting a pan things reminded me. Didn't Tom Waits do something similar? I know he didn't he hit a filing cabinet or something, and that's in one of his
Yeah.
songs.
So yeah.
Yeah, because I remember when I got to a certain age, my auntie was like, "You like good music now. Here's Tom Waits. Look at his discography." And I was like, "Wow, this is so good." But I started earlier, so then when you
Yeah.
get to his later stuff, you're like, "What happened to his voice? Why did he start hitting bins and stuff? Not bins, pans and stuff?" But
Yeah, I mean, you even bringing up Tom Waits makes me want to listen to Tom Waits, so I'll probably do that today.
yeah, he's really good. I like as well when you watch a film, he just turns up in it for some reason. Like I
Oh yeah,
forgot he was in the Bram Stoker's Dracula until I watched it recently. And then I was
he's
like,
in Wrist Cutters, a love story. He's in that too. Um, yeah, he just seems to pop up here and there. You're like, oh,
yeah. There's
there
someone
he
else
is.
as well, which me and my partner hates it, but I like it. And he's also in Dracula. It's Richard E. Grant. He's in everything. He's always
Yeah,
like, he's in Saltburn. He's in everything we watch. We watched Loki. He was in that. And I'm a big Doctor Who fan. So, and he was like, he played the Doctor in like some weird audio drama in the early 2000s. And there was a bit where his face pops up now in like the last episode. I was like, there he is. My partner was like, no, he's in everything. I'm like, he's just hard working. He mustn't say no to any role, like kind of like
yeah.
Nicolas Cage.
He's all about those Benjamins. He's got to get them. He'll play any role.
I know, but well, Nicolas Cage doesn't have a choice, does he?
No, but I'll endorse any Nicolas Cage project because Nicolas Cage is so absurd that he doesn't seem human sometimes. So
No, I agree. I wrote an essay in uni because I did film studies about how Nicolas Cage was like an outlaw figure and how he can play like anti-capitalist characters and then also big blockbusters. Because for some reason with film studies, you can write whatever you want as long as you can back it up with like theory. I had a talent for that, I guess.
yeah, I mean, Nicolas Cage at one point was slated to play Superman, which I just can't imagine Nicolas Cage Superman, but I want to see it so bad.
I know. He turned up in the end of like the Flash film as well, and I didn't want to watch that, so I watched the end scene with him in it, and he just turns around to the camera. But
He's like, here, thanks for the money.
yeah, basically, because it was another one of those where I saw a clip from a film before that was some weird horror film that's just come out, and I was like, "What the hell's that?" And I googled it, and Nicolas Cage's face pops up, and I'm like, "Of course, there he is."
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, movies are a huge influence on me. Probably like my second biggest influence. Music and film have always like worked together. So I think it's great that you kind of have that too. We can talk
Yeah.
about that.
What are your like top 5 films then? We'll do that question.
I hate being asked favorites. Because you could ask me like 500 times and I would have different answers. So take that. I like to rate things. I like how the kids are doing these tier lists because
Yeah.
I like this is an but off the or movie. Off the top of my head, I would say like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, um, Dark City. Let's see. This is so hard for me. Um,
I don't like doing
Citizen
top. Oh, carry on.
Kane, um, is a S tier. I'm like looking at my collection right now, which is like huge. The Exorcist. I'm a big horror fan. A movie I just saw recently that I think is pretty S tier was
This is why I use Letterboxd because I always write everything down as soon as I've finished, and I'm like, I'll forget otherwise.
um I'll just throw Candyman in there, the original Candyman.
Oh, that's a good
The,
one.
I love the remake and I hate remakes and reboots, but the Candyman like reboot, that was some good shit.
I still haven't seen the Candyman reboot either. I really want to. It's just not been. Me and my partner watched The Walking Dead for ages, so that took up
Uh-huh.
like months and months of our time. So I didn't watch many films for ages. But like, yeah, because I use Letterboxd, I've got mine like locked in. So I've got like Evil Dead 2 because I'm a massive Evil Dead fan. Because I love like, I think horror and comedy are like the best. Like they go together so well, and I don't think anyone does it as good as Sam Raimi. And then I had to pick a David Lynch film, so I had Wild at Heart. It was Blue Velvet, but Nicolas Cage is just too fun in that movie. And then Shape of Water, like when that film came out, is when I did my first year of like film studies, and we went to go see it in the cinema with the uni. I went on my own, and then I went again, and I got it on Blu-ray, and like I don't know, Del Toro really like hit it out of the park with that one. And then the last one was like Tokyo Godfathers, because
Oh,
I was that
sorry.
sorry.
I was just saying that The Shape of Water was a great movie. I think it had a lot of attention at the time. You don't hear much about it anymore. But we saw that in the theater too, actually, and we don't do that very often. Remarkable film.
Yeah,
Everyone should watch it.
yeah, it's like incredible. And then my fourth one's like Tokyo Godfathers because Satoshi Kon is like a master of like Japanese like animated cinema. Like he's so good. And I didn't want to be like pick Paprika and just be like I wanted to be a bit like contrarian. So Tokyo
Sure.
Godfathers. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I
We
said, you could ask me this question 100 times, and every time I would probably pick different movies. There are consistent ones too. Um, like this is controversial because the guy who made it is a total piece of shit. But like Rosemary's Baby, I love that film. I think Rosemary's Baby is a remarkable movie made by a complete piece of shit. But he still alive,
I
or is
don't
he like
know.
I don't
I think
know
he
if
might be
he's
dead.
money off of it. So
Yeah. I
he's
always
alive,
find
just
what was that?
pirate it. Or I said
Yeah.
if he's alive, I don't know. I sometimes struggle with whether or not something I should or shouldn't like. But I saw Rosemary's Baby way before I had any idea about any of that, and it's just a movie that's really hung with me. So I probably would bump one of those movies off the top five and slip Rosemary's Baby in there.
Yeah. I find it hard with top fives as well. Like when someone asks me like my top 5 albums, and I'm like, I don't know. A White Pony is nailed on to like be in there, and the Black Parade because I was of that era where I was like 12 years old when that came out, and that shaped me. So, but apart from that, everything else is also. Why should I pick 5? Because there's so much music, even though we ask people to pick 5.
Thousands of S tier albums have been created. So yeah, I agree.
That's the sad
I
thing,
mean,
though.
definitely ones that always come to mind when I think of favorite albums, but as soon as I try to make a list, I'm trying to whittle down a list of 100 albums and I give up. You know, album off the top of my head, like Converge's Jane Doe. I have a Jane Doe tattoo. I'm one of those people. That refused The Shape of Punk to Come. Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. Like these are albums that again I can listen to all the way through and never get bored with. So
Yeah, Smashing Pumpkins are one of those bands though where I'm like, I don't know. I have a problem listening to because like Billy Corgan's done some transphobic stuff, hasn't he? So I'm like, oh, but I really, really like them.
I haven't listened to anything they put out since, gosh, it's been a long time, and it was only recently I discovered that Billy Corgan what was as problematic as he is.
Yeah.
Regardless, it's still really hard for me to deny that album when it came out was hugely influential on me.
Do you have anything you want to plug, which you do, because that is why we're here for the compilation.
Sure. I could. So first off, I wanna plug T4T again. It's on my Bandcamp. It's mycorrhizal.bandcamp.com. You can find that there. It's for pay what you want. So if folks want to just, if they want to drop $1, they want to drop $10, they want to drop more, whatever. That money is all going to a good cause. Before you check out my music, before you buy my stuff, get this comp. That's more important to me. I also got some t-shirts and tank tops up on my store right now. 100% of the proceeds from that are going to buy eSIMs for Palestinians, which is really important. For a lot of them, that's their only connection to the outside world. So please, summer's here, hot liminal dread production summer. Go get a Mycorrhizal tank top. I'm not benefiting anything from that. And then check out the split that's coming out later this month. It's pretty fire. So other than that, I thank you for this interview, for giving me the platform to talk about the compilation. I appreciate everyone who's bought it already, who's listened to it already. I appreciate people who listen to my music. Yeah, I guess that's all I really have to say. Support your trans friends, check in on them. It's really hard out there right now for us and for a lot of people. So check in on your trans friends, be good to each other, and free Palestine.
That is a wonderful message to end on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.